It's really lovely to have you and hear from you your experience, the expertise, advice, and lot more, whatnot. So over to you, Babita. Thanks for being here.
No, thank you, Shami, for inviting me. I'm really pleased to be here. First off, I'm not a doctor. I must put that out there. I'm not a gut health specialist in the sense of being a doctor. I'm a level 4 nutritionist and I have a keen interest in gut health because I know how it helped me. I know how it's helping so many of my clients achieve transformation. So any advice I give should not be taken as medical advice, but also should be treated as helpful advice because my intention is to help you sail a bit easier through your menopausal journey through diet, through mindful eating, and through focusing on the health of your gut because that really is the seat of everybody's mental, physical, and emotional health.
Well, thank you so much for such a short description. It is really useful for people to know what to look out for from the session, and what is the importance of looking after our gut microbiome. What is it first, and then how does it affect during menopause? Just a bit introduction on that.
Yes, Shami, sure. So you asked what is it? So it's a collection of fungi, it's a collection of bacteria, it's a collection of various thousands of bacteria that live on us, in us, in every orifice and also inside of us. Majorly, it's on our skin. Our skin is covered with it. It's not that they live on us, it's we live on them. We are more microbiome than we are actually human. There is a book actually out there called 10% Human, which actually delves quite deeply by the scientists who have looked into it, that our microbiome makes more of us than we are actually, that our DNA cells are only 10%. The
Oh,
rest is all microbiome. So that bacteria, that fungi, that kind of thing that's living predominantly on our skin and in our intestines and in our
mm,
large and small intestines, they also have their own DNA. They have their own feeding system. They
yeah,
have their own energy system, and
yeah,
what affects them actually affects us.
yeah.
So it's really important. Everything has a microbiome. Plants have a microbiome. Trees have a microbiome. Your pet has a microbiome. So they are microscopic, tiny communities of bacteria and fungi species performing dozens, well, actually more like hundreds of diverse roles. They have its own ecosystem, and we've actually farmed out a lot of our health to them. It is them that converts our food into energy. It is
Mm,
them that helps us convert protein into muscle. It is
mm.
them that sort of informs our mental state, which is why it's so important in menopause, because the menopausal hormones are directly affected by your gut microbiome.
Oh, that has a huge impact during
So when I talk about
menopause.
hormones,
Yeah.
yes, a huge impact. So when I'm talking about why it's crucial, for instance, in menopause,
Mm.
most people will have heard that the gut actually holds 95% of serotonin, for instance.
Oh,
Serotonin is
happy
it has a double
hormones.
role. It's a happy hormone, yeah, exactly the happy hormone. It has a dual purpose as well. It's a neurotransmitter and a hormone. It's such a clever hormone, but 95% of it is housed in the gut, not in your brain. And have heard of a gut-brain connection,
Mm.
or the vagus nerve, which is what connects the gut and the brain, or they say they're having a gut feeling
Mhm.
because the gut has been identified as your second brain, but it's actually the bigger brain, it's your
Oh,
visceral brain. So the conversation is 70% always going on, but it's not from brain to gut, it's predominantly from gut to brain. So when we have 95% of our serotonin in the gut, and estrogen, as we all know, is the major female hormone that is rapidly declining in menopause and perimenopause.
mm,
Estrogen have receptors for serotonin.
mm,
So that's why we see an increase of depression, anxiety, lack of confidence, low mood,
A lot of
because
psychological symptoms.
definitely, because as the estrogen goes down, the
Mm,
receptor for serotonin goes down. But
mm,
also, that's why it's important to keep that gut healthy so the serotonin stays up,
mm,
without the help of antidepressants. But obviously, if you have been to the doctor and you do need them, then
mm.
yes, by all means, get that investigated. But what I'm trying to say is, through healing the gut through food, you can actually keep the serotonin levels up, which immediately impacts melatonin levels because serotonin turns to melatonin later in the day, which
Mm,
helps you sleep.
mm,
Another major, huge symptom of menopause. So, like,
yeah.
75%, it depends what studies you read, between 75% and 86% of women are not sleeping in menopause. It's a huge problem. So,
Oh,
if the gut is not converting the serotonin to melatonin and the cortisol is staying high, I mean, we don't have a long time in this conversation that so many things impact the ability to fall to sleep well in menopause, but also have that restorative sleep. And it is hugely linked to your gut microbiome, the serotonin, the melatonin, and that conversion and how good your hormones convert. Um,
wow.
Another thing to mention in tandem with your gut, if we have time, is the liver, because the liver, I mean, it does so many functions, hundreds of functions that the liver does, not just detoxing from alcohol, which is what a lot of people think about, but the liver is crucial to transport hormones. Not only does it help you transport hormones, but it helps those hormones get into the right parking spot where they need to be in the body. That
Yeah.
includes
Mm,
estrogen,
mm,
progesterone,
mm,
testosterone. Your
yeah.
liver and gut need to be working together well.
Mm,
If you're taking HRT, it will make the HRT work better. If you're not
mm,
taking HRT, it will
mm,
just help your symptoms calm down. So
mm.
I'll stop there just in case you have any
Yeah, yeah.
other
It's a lot of information. I'm
questions.
sure they can't get everything in one thing. But I just wanted to, to put it in simple words that by looking after your gut health during menopause, it addresses your psychological symptoms as well. Like, usually we think that it is just going to take care of your physical symptoms, but it has a direct connect with the brain, which is a second brain. It addresses the psychological symptoms as well. Am I right? Yeah. Something like a brain fog too can
Completely right.
yeah, yeah. So to mention some of the symptoms like
Absolutely.
everything. Yeah, yeah. The low mood, depression,
Yeah,
brain,
yeah. Like,
yeah, and unmotivated feeling, whatever. It's the psychological problem that women suffers from in this state. Most of the things are mostly psychological problems. The menopausal transition. And now, please tell us how one looks after. I know a simple tips that a women, menopausal women can can follow to maintain a good gut health. Any simple tips that you would want to give them? Yeah.
yeah, one of the major things is to eat more fiber. So
Okay.
we're meant to be having 35 grams of fiber a day.
Mm-hmm.
And the Western diet does not
Mm-hmm.
provide that for many people, especially if they are relying on convenience foods where
Mm-hmm.
fiber has been completely stripped out
Mm,
of the food.
mm,
So the way to think of it is to have lots of vegetables. I
mm,
mean, Tim Spector, who's an amazing gut advocate, and other scientists like him have now said 30 different vegetables in a week,
oh,
So this is a lot of vegetables, which are best cooked lightly. So that means sort of quick stir fry. I
steam.
like steaming to a
Mm,
crunch. Yeah,
mm,
exactly. And have a diverse amount. And the deeper and darker the color of the vegetable, the better. So, if you're choosing between a cabbage, or a green leaf, go for the darker cabbage like the Savoy
mm,
and the darker kales like Cavanero and
mm,
things like that. Also, fruits with skin on. So keep the skin on apples. Apple pectin is really good for the gut. It's fibrous, it's healthy, it feeds the
mm.
gut.
So the key
Um,
is fiber.
and then
The
the
key
key is
is
fiber,
fiber.
and then also focus on taking out the simple grains. taking
Mm.
out the simple carbs because that's actually disruptive to the gut. It causes a lot of
Mm.
holes in the gut. Even if you aren't gluten intolerant, flour is
Mm.
so damaging to the gut wall, creates these little tears. And a lot of
Mm.
people do find that with commercial gluten now and commercial flour,
Mm.
like breads and
Mm.
pasta and crumpets and
Mm.
baked goods and sugar
Mm.
goods, all of that is quite damaging to the gut wall. So instead of those carbs, focus on vegetables because all vegetables are a carbohydrate, but also focus on complex carbohydrates, which help broom out your intestine. So things
What
like
do you mean by
buckwheat, things like quinoa.
complex carbohydrates? Just give some examples. And what do you mean by complex carbohydrates? Yeah, it just
So,
has.
Shabni, I was going to speak about complex carbohydrates being wild rice, brown
Oh,
rice,
okay,
millet,
okay.
sweet potato,
Mm-hmm.
all the vegetables,
Mm-hmm.
buckwheat, which is a great grain if you're coming off white rice. Quinoa, also a great grain instead of white rice and white flour.
Mm-hmm.
Quinoa is actually also a whole protein, so it's really
Mm-hmm.
great to include in vegan diets and vegetarian diets. It's a great source of all of the amino acids that you would find, in a good quality protein. So fiber is one. Secondly, I would focus on the leafy greens that
Okay.
support your liver.
Mm-hmm.
The liver, did you know, is a green organ in Chinese medicine?
Mm-hmm.
So it really likes green foods.
Mm-hmm.
And it also helps to cleanse the liver from helping the hormones being hijacked by these fake hormones in all the fake food that we have in our
Oh,
in our system at the moment. So that's really good to do. I would focus on bacterial foods, so things that are probiotic, so it has live bacteria in it. So
okay.
things like if you eat dairy, it would be things like yogurt, live natural yogurt,
Mm-hmm.
avoiding the yogurts that have a lot of flavorings and a lot of additives, just simple milk yogurt, natural yogurt, kefir, which is also great for you. It can also be a water kefir. You don't have to have
Mm-hmm.
the dairy version.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so kimchi, which is
Mm-hmm.
like a Asian tart sort of pickle, which is fermented.
So any
Things
fermented
like
foods,
sour
we could say, yeah, most
fermented foods.
fermented foods, yeah. Is there a sequence of the intake of food that is there to follow that affects our gut microbiome? Is there a sequence like first vegetables, then protein, something? Is there any sequencing that can be followed to maintain a good, is
I
there
would say there
something?
isn't such a sequence in terms of affecting the gut microbiome. There is a sequence that
Oh,
affects your blood sugar. So a
oh,
good way
yeah,
to eat, if you want to keep, which also is very key to hormonal
yeah.
health, keeping your blood sugar stable is the number one thing, as well as your gut. Because so the way you can sequence your food there is you can start with the vegetables. For instance,
Mm,
if you had a separated meal,
mm,
like say like a
mm,
roast, Sunday
mm,
roast, you would start with the vegetables, get all them
mm,
in first.
mm,
That feeds your gut bacteria. Then go
mm,
with the protein. And then if
mm,
there's anything left over, go with the
mm,
starches, like the
mm,
potato or the
mm,
rice or anything like that.
mm.
Um,
Yeah.
but leave them last to lower the blood sugar spike, or leave them. If there's no room for them, leave them. The greater nutritional value would be found in the mixed vegetables and the protein.
Lovely. That's nice. That's a very good because I was okay. That's a good information. What are the triggers that we can avoid? That triggers to avoid for a bad from getting a bad gut health. Yeah.
The problem is with gut health is that it's a constant maintenance. It's not one and done. I
Yeah.
struggle to do it every day, every
Yeah.
week, because
Yeah.
it's not one and done. Every time you eat something, whether it
Mm,
be a peanut or whatever it is, it's impacting those little microbes for good or
mm,
for bad. So
mm,
every time you eat something good for them, they're having a little song and dance. Every time
mm,
you eat something bad for them, if they are addicted to it, They are also having a song and dance. So people say
Mm.
to me, off the sugar. I
Mm.
can't get off the chocolate. I can't. Well, of
Yeah,
course you
yeah,
can't because you're actually been feeding your
yeah.
microbiomes with that. They're expecting it. It's not great for you. It's slowing
Oh.
down your energy. It's making you fatigued. It's giving you
Mm.
inflammation.
Mm.
So
What do we
to go back
do?
to your question,
Mm.
yeah, to go back to your question, you need to starve those bad bacteria.
Yeah.
And the way you starve them is to stop the
Mm.
things that are causing like cholesterol, right? You've got good and bad. It's the same in bacteria. You have good and bad. And it depends which one you feed, which is
Mm.
going to be prolific in your body. So if you
Mm.
want to starve those bad bacteria, the best thing you can do is, I'm going to say some unpopular things, but the
Mm.
best thing you can do is avoid sugar, all forms of
Mm.
sugar. Like we
Mm.
just talked about, simple carbohydrates are sugar. So
Mm.
rice,
Mm.
wheat-based products are sugar. They turn to sugar very quickly in the body. Even
Wheat-based
honey,
products. Wheat-based
yeah,
products. Oh,
yeah.
my God, what else do we eat then? Just kidding. Yeah.
So much you can eat. Let's come on to that. There's so much. Let's come on to all of it. So avoid flour goods, so
Mm.
wheat, yeah.
Mm.
Avoid baked goods. Avoid sugar,
Mm.
in its rawest form. In other words, chocolate sweets and all of those ice creams as well.
Mm.
Um, Avoid alcohol. Alcohol is so disruptive to the gut microbiome. You know yourself when you've been on the liquor or the wine or whatever, your stomach feels it. It feels
Yeah,
it. Okay,
yeah, and
your
it
head
affects the
feels
sleep.
it.
Yeah, the head
It
feels
affects
it, affects the
everything.
sleep. Yeah.
And it becomes even worse in perimenopause. Our tolerance becomes, we like to deny it, but our tolerance completely changes to alcohol and it really affects us badly.
Right.
Aches and pains and joint ache and all that stuff. Sugar and alcohol, one of the worst things for all of that. And for some people, they need to avoid the caffeine. Caffeine and tea can become super triggers for acid reflux,
Even tea, is
especially
it?
late
Yeah.
in the day.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
tea is a
Yeah.
huge one for acid reflux. It's
Yeah.
such an
Okay.
acidic drink. There are benefits to tea and coffee, but if your body is starting to feel that effect, then things are changing. Your
Hmm.
microbiome is changing. The
Hmm.
acid is coming up maybe, and I've heard so many people say that they can no longer drink tea and coffee. It just doesn't do it for them anymore. It just gives them that acid reflux, which is a sign of poor stomach acid. So you really need to focus on your gut if that's happening to you. And processed food. One of the
Yeah.
biggest problems with people's inflammatory responses. I'm talking about joint pain, which many
Hmm.
perimenopausal women feel,
Hmm.
is coming off of processed food. Our guts are still ancient. They're millions of years old, okay? Our gut is still ancient. The food that we have now is modern. And all these additives, preservatives, E numbers, chemicals, xenoestrogens
Hmm.
inside the food for
Hmm.
long shelf life,
Hmm.
even plastics, you know, all of these things are not recognized by the body. The body doesn't know what to do with them. The gut
Hmm.
is hugely impacted, which is why we end up with gas,
Hmm.
bloating, acid reflux, because your body doesn't know what to do with it. Your
Hmm.
fat cells
Hmm.
are grabbing hold of these fake foods because they're not whole foods. They're made in a factory. So they're not real. So your fat cells hold on to them and they trap those toxins in the fat cells, which is why it's hard to lose weight because your
Yeah.
fat cells are there to protect you. If they
Hmm.
start to release this stuff, it will release all these things into your bloodstream. So coming off processed food, people lose weight almost instantly because finally the body can clear itself of these toxins safely. And that's what I help women do, to do that in a safe way.
Hmm.
So yeah, there would be, I was going to say the major things to avoid to protect your gut. I would avoid processed foods, sugar, alcohol, and also refined foods like grains, like baked goods and flour and wheat goods, and be gluten free for a while because you will really notice a difference.
Yeah, that's lovely. But I have sweet tooth. What do I do? Just kidding. We
I
know
have
it. Yeah, yeah,
I have a
okay.
sweet tooth too. So maybe we can come on to that question.
That's lovely. Yeah, we should address the realistic one. Yeah, I'll just log out and get back to you. Okay, dears. Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you for